estate. We got a lot of people out there starting businesses that need that extra guidance, don't want to get it. Don't minimize corporate America. I love corporate America. I wouldn't mind going back. If everything could run itself, I'd go back into managing multifamily commercial assets. All right, I think we're good to go. All right, folks, my name is Otis James. You know, I'm a full time real estate investor out of the San Francisco Bay Area. I am a former mortgage broker. I was in the multifamily commercial industry for over 2 decades. I left overseeing just around $650 million in multifamily commercial assets. I'm a licensed real estate broker in California, licensed real estate broker in Georgia. I'm licensed in insurance. I'm a long term hold investor. I consult on development projects, domestic and abroad. I had a national notary signing agent company back in the day. I'm on the non real estate related side, on the entrepreneurship side. I took $585 and created a company that went on to generate seven figures in the short time that I had it. And then I just let it go. I didn't want to do it. I wanted to do something else. So, putting these different investing strategies and entrepreneurship strategies together is something that was just kind of second nature. And sometimes I just did this stuff because it was fun. For Data Points Academy is that gets most of my time and resources. That is a real estate investing mentorship program that takes people from zero knowledge until, and the reason I say until is because there's no end date and there's always continued education that we give out, and we always create a space for people to come back if they run into difficulty out there in the real world. The information is great when it comes to real estate investing. What's up, Alice? Go ahead and come up here, brother. The information is great when it comes to real estate investing, but the actual learning comes with the practical application of those strategies and all those other things that you learned. And I understand that there's a lot of organizations that really just sell you a bunch of information, most of which you probably could have Googled. So we don't put too much stock in the information. That's just a small piece of the puzzle. We try to hold people's hand when they're out there actually doing the stuff. So that being said, these live streams and these clubhouse rooms, I don't schedule the clubhouse rooms anymore, but I do schedule my live streams. And if I've got the inputs, then I'll go ahead and let the folks over on Clubhouse listen in. So if you guys see me pause or hear me pause, depending on where you're watching me from, then it's because I've got a whole bunch of stuff going on here. So I'll try to do my best to make sure we add some value to folks. You got all these windows up. You don't know where to put your eyes. I don't know where to look. What's up, Rose, over on TikTok? So we're really trying to build up our TikTok page. So I'm gonna put our TikTok in the Clubhouse chat just so you guys know where we're at. If you want to go over there, there we go. So if you want to, see me, go ahead. Somebody say it. Ain't nobody come to see you, Otis. Say, get it out the way. Oh, what's up, Rose? All right. What's up, Ashanta? All right. So we're gonna get into a few different things. So it's all the real estate conversation is always at the forefront of whatever it is that I'm doing. I'm a real estate guy. I've been exposed to real estate really my entire life. I come from a real estate family. I'm one of the only folks that got this heavy into real estate investing. But I was 3 years old going to meetings with my dad. He's been in real estate since 1971. And we were just talking about a real estate deal yesterday, actually. So he is 80 and he is still in the game. I don't know what type of miracle elixir he's been taking because he's not, I think he stopped aging at about 58. But that is where I get most of my influence from. We've had mortgage brokerages, we've had real estate brokerages. So it's been all things real estate and really every aspect of real estate, whether it's the management, whether it's the financing, whether it's the acquisition, all of the things I've been exposed to. So when I'm teaching somebody how to invest in real estate, the goal is to simplify it as much as possible and to put them in a position where they only focus on what's important. And I do that with four questions. Those four questions are: what does it cost, or what am I willing to pay? And these are the four questions that we ask anytime we're considering a piece of real estate. What does it cost, or what am I willing to pay? What does it cost to improve, or what does it cost to fix up? What's it going to be worth when I'm done? How much income can it generate? And when we just focus on those questions force us to uncover information that we may not have known to ask about as a new investor. And once we can master those 4 questions and interpret the answers to determine whether or not this particular piece of property fits into our buy box, then we can build our education on top of that. Otherwise, it could get overwhelming for people because there's so many different ways to do things in the real estate investing space. And if it gets too overwhelming and people quit, then it's not going to do either of us any good. So I've been teaching it that way for a long time. As a matter of fact, I think those 4 questions are so important. That's the name behind the 4 Data Points Academy. 4 data points. What does it cost? What does it cost to fix up? What's it going to be worth when I'm done? How much income can it generate? I've often given out, a free guide to teach people how to assess a deal on the residential level. You guys can get that off my website or reach out to me and I'll make sure you get it, so you don't get in trouble out there, get into something that you can't get out of. I give that away for free. And the reason I do that is because I've been, invited to speak at, quite a few places on the real estate side. And when I'm talking to people that want to get into real estate investing, 99% of the people don't fully understand what it is to be a real estate investor. And it's not their fault. They go off what they see on, social media, and they see everybody's wins. And I think they have a false sense of what success looks like as a real estate investor. So I give them that guide so that they can at least practice something and get involved in the process. Because if I do that and they get involved in the process and then they have questions, then those questions are going to be key to them understanding how to get to the next level. So I want them to get stuck and have questions and then come back to all of the free platforms and ask those questions. That way, when people call me, we can make, it's a better use of our time together. If people call me wanting mentorship, I don't want to try to convince them why mentorship is a good idea. I want them to already know. So for the last 4 years, I've just been, giving people information and letting them go out there and do it themselves. Otherwise, let's just say that works better, right? That works better for me. All right. So today, what is my topic? So I want to go through, so some of these, there's some overlap, right, with entrepreneurship and real estate. So as a real estate investor, I guess I could be considered an entrepreneur. Not so much on the real estate investing side, but really the educational component to it, because that requires systems and automations, and that is an actual business that needs to run efficient so I can service as many people as possible. There's only a small group of us. I think in total, at any given time, there's probably about 5 of us involved in what we're doing. So in order to maintain a professional end user experience, then there's a lot of business conversations that I have to have that I don't have to have as a real estate investor. But again, there's some overlap. So today I wanted to talk about kind of the 5 stages that entrepreneurs go through. And I'll go ahead and if you guys have real estate questions, I'm always down to answer those. So even if it's off topic, feel free to, raise your hand, put them in the chat for wherever you guys are, and I'll go ahead and address those. You folks on TikTok, we are again trying to build up our TikTok page. It's just the nature of the world we live in now. So if you guys can share the room, what's going on? What's going on, Crystal? If you guys can share the room, then that would be beneficial to all of us. That being said, let's talk about the spark. This is typically when people first decide they want to be entrepreneurs, and maybe they went to a conference or there was some motivational or inspirational thing that they experienced, and now they've got that excitement, and then they've got the vision, right? This is going to wear off, but typically, you're in this stage when you're binge watching motivational content, you're buying books, courses, coaching, you're telling friends and family something big is coming. Uh, it's just the nature of the what's up, Fernando? It's just the nature of what we do, right? But unfortunately, that's typically where it stops for most people. They are in that space and it's hard for them to get out of it, right? So, so what do you do to go from that spark to the next level, which is really the chaos, right? Now, level 2, the chaos takes people out. And the chaos, what happens, you realize there's a lot more to this than you thought. Everything seems important and urgent at the same time. It's easy to get overwhelmed, right? So let's take it back to real estate investing and teaching people how to invest in real estate. It will be overwhelming if I give you everything at one point. All right. So when we go over the fundamentals, that's about 7 and 8 weeks. And then there's a whole bunch of other information out there that you're not ready for yet. But when you are out there actually doing the thing, the practical application of the information you've learned so far, then it starts to unravel. Right. So when I'm teaching somebody, I don't just give them all the complicated stuff. And that's also part of the reason why we remove the end date, right? I didn't want a program that starts and finishes, because there's so many things that you encounter over time. If you're in any program, especially a program that's teaching you or mentoring you, there's no guarantee that you're going to experience some of those things before that mentorship obligation is up. And 90% of the things that people run into, they don't even happen in the first 6 months. A lot of these things happen, over time. And so coaching people through those things that happen over time, that's how you create a seasoned real estate investor. And you guys have heard me say this multiple times. The reason why companies typically don't do that is because it costs them too much to do that. All right. Those companies are businesses that exist to generate income, and that's what they do. All right. So the spark is the first thing, right? Everybody, for example, there's let me see, let me go over to Clubhouse. So Clubhouse, there's like, what, 20 of us in this room or something. So somebody in this room may come in and hear me say something like, look, this is how you buy a piece of property with no money up front. And you guys have heard me talk about that before, right? You talk about the 4 components of structuring deals creatively. We talk about paying out of your exit strategy so you don't need the upfront capital. So people can get inspired by that, because conventional thought is, oh, well, if I don't need money to buy a house, then I can just learn that strategy and I can create a portfolio based on doing that. That's part of the spark, right? They get inspired, they have a vision, they're excited, and then they realize that just because you can buy a house with no money up front does not mean the house is free. It does not mean you don't need capital to operate. They soon realize that they have to have a lot of conversations to actually bring that outcome to fruition. And then they realize, well, it costs to get in those conversations. Well, what does it cost? Well, you've got to let people know who you are, and it costs to let people know who you are. All right. So that's an example of, okay, there's the spark, right? They get the information, they get inspired, and now they get into chaos. That's the second phase of entrepreneurship, and I'm tying this to real estate. All right. And again, these are kind of the symptoms of when you're in the chaos phase, right? There's 5 stages. We're on stage 2, chaos. You start and stop multiple things. That is that if you do that, you are in the chaos phase, right? You're constantly tweaking your logo, your name, your niche. You're doubting yourself and comparing yourself to others, right? And I think we've all been there. And some of those things don't go away. But how do we do that? How do we overcome that? Well, focus on one offer, one audience, one marketing strategy. I've had to do that many times. We've had, at the 4 Data Points Academy, we had a bunch of different offerings. We wanted to have an offering for anybody that came in at any stage, because we wanted to help as many people as possible. That was not, but that was not the best thing to do, right? So we were in constant chaos and trying to figure out who to market to and when. And we don't do a lot of marketing. We definitely didn't do a lot of marketing our first few years. Now we're starting, because we're scaling up. Now we have to do more marketing, so these conversations are coming up much more. But all of us are in the chaos phase when we're, doing all the basic stuff, right? Now, when people come into the 4 Data Points Academy, we partnered with REI Pro to use their 60-day action plan so that people don't get overwhelmed and spend a bunch of time on things that aren't going to generate any profit. All right. So constantly tweaking your logo, your name, all that admin stuff. We have a list and a checklist so people can focus on those things. All right. So first phase is the spark. Everybody gets excited, whether you're starting a business or you decide you want to be a real estate investor. Those symptoms, you're watching all types of motivational content, you're buying books, courses, coaching, all that stuff. You're telling your friends and family that, something big is going to happen. Then you get into the chaos mode. So this is now you're putting action to that spark. In chaos mode, you realize there's more to it than you thought. This will either make you or this will break you. Most people don't get past this. Okay. They start doing multiple things, starting, stopping, doing all the admin stuff we were just talking about, doubting themselves, comparing yourselves to others. And then, right when you think that it's going to get easier, guess what? Phase three, stage three, the grind, right? You're in the trenches. Hold on, we got some questions here. You're in the trenches. You picked a lane. Now you're facing real world resistance, no clients, no leads, no systems that break. Symptoms, late nights, self doubt, low returns, learning the hard way through trial and error, thinking maybe this isn't for me. The grind is usually the end point for most folks. The grind is usually the end point for most folks. The grind is where you're able to determine, am I built for this or am I not built for this? And the grind, going through the grind, isn't something that only happens once. Every time you level up to the next stage, it's a different type of grind, right? So how do we get through that? Now this is I'm gonna stop here for a second. Put a one in the chat if anybody anywhere is starting your own business and you've experienced any of this. The excitement is the first phase, then the chaos, you feel like it's more to it than you thought, and then it's the grind, right? So put a one in the chat if anybody's experienced that, because I want to talk about how to get through that. Oh, I'll tell you what, positive self-talk happens or helps when I'm explaining. Was all right, I got you, I see you, Shay. When I'm explaining, Jamisha, you there right now? Jamisha, you know you could call me, I can get you through the grind, sis. When I'm venting to there's not very many people on this planet that I'll vent to on the business side, but the one or two people, you know, I'll vent for about probably about 90 seconds, and then I always cap it up with, but I'm built for this. So you've got to be able to determine, are you built for this or are you not? I'll tell you what, none of us are built for this. None of us were born for this. None of us are built for this. Paige says, I think I'm at the beginning of phase three, maybe even still in step two. Paige, I got a solution for you, right? I've been through all of these phases multiple times with different businesses. Do you know how many times I've been that I've almost, given up and went back to corporate? I still, I'm still, in that kind of that whole field, right? Because I have a lot of friends there, and a lot of friends I came up with are now, at higher level execs and things of that nature. And the corporate environment, the pay was like significant, right? It's pretty significant, the higher you go in the multifamily commercial industry. And you don't know how many times that I wanted to not wanted, I'll say considered. Like I was really weighing it out. You guys hear me joke about, sometimes I'll be sitting on the front porch and me and my dog out there, and it'll be when it rains, it pours, right? And as a real estate investor, things can go really, really well, but things can go really, really bad, really, really fast, right? And I remember it was just a whole chain of events. Like it was like when we looked at all the income we made for the month, it was like negative $90,000 or something ridiculous, right? I remember sitting out there on the porch and I was watching the mailman, same mailman all the time, and I always watch this dude. And I remember thinking, man, his job is so peaceful. All he has to do is pick up the mail, sort it out, find a number on the house, and drop it in the mailbox. Man, I would like some of that peace, right? Not have to think about anything. I don't have 350 students and going through, whatever they're going through, because I absorb all that stuff, right? So that's just part of the grind. So what I had to do was I had to condition myself to move forward in spite of how I feel, not because of how I feel, but in spite of how I feel. And I would just write things on random pieces of scratch paper. Do it now. I would just learn how to write that. Do it now. Do it now. Do it now. And and some other tools, and again, positive self-talk and being around positive people, that will take you out. The grind will take you out, right? And the grind is actually expensive too. So this is where new entrepreneurs lose most of their capital, right? So you're learning the hard way through trial and error. That's where most new entrepreneurs lose their capital, because instead of seeking the proper guidance, they go based on, maybe what they've seen or some information that was easily obtainable. And they try to apply that to their business and what it is that they're doing. And I've had plenty of conversations when people are at this at this phase, and then they'll call me and say, "Hey, look, I'm basically out of money. What would you do?" Right? And these are some of some of my students have other businesses also, but they know that we're branching into the entrepreneurship lane, so they'll call me about some of these things that are non-real estate related. Well, the folks that have one-on-ones with me will call me about non-real estate related. Right? So I tell them, look, one, you just have to keep moving forward. Two, you need to double down on your actions. Three, you need to track what's working and just understand that this is the hardest stage, but it's also where most people quit. So if you can make it through this, it's downhill from here. And I tell people this is actually a seasoning process, right? I want to buy a Miami Skyrise. You could, you absolutely can. I tell people this is the seasoning process. And once you understand that it's a seasoning process, and you have a different appreciation for the grind, right? And to give you an example of how effective going through the seasoning process is, if you are at the $50,000 mark and you are having $50,000 problems in your business, it's better to learn how to navigate those problems while you're at the $50,000 level, because once you get to the $1 million level, it's going to be highly imperative that you're already able to navigate these things, because it can be a much larger problem if you haven't learned when it was small. So have an appreciation for the seasoning process. I tell people, look, program that in your head. Program it. Page says running out of money is real. Absolutely. It may not be the first time either. There's been multiple times where I've run out of money, multiple times. And the tough part about it, first, when you run out of money, you got to get past the emotional component of running out of money, right? You got to be solution oriented. So my focus is, okay, we'll just make more money, right? So I don't get caught up when most investors are cash poor most of the time, because we know that we don't want money just sitting in the bank. That money has to be doing something, right? But there's a balance. You have to, if you deploy capital, there's always inherent risk, and yet you got to have a balance and not be over leveraged, and not spread yourself too thin. These are all lessons that you're going to learn the easy way or the hard way, right? The hard way is much more expensive. So being cash poor, you're going to run into some of these things, right? Especially when you're somebody like me that invests all over the country, and that gives a lot, right? I give a lot, and through real estate, like some of my properties I use for transitional housing, some of my tenants that are going through, some tough times, or, some life situations. I won't collect rent for them for a duration of time. I've got properties that people have, robbed, because some of these properties are used, like I mentioned, transitional housing. Some of those folks are trying to get off drugs. Some of those, so I've got to deal with all the problems that come along with that. That's why when people get into real estate, they want to give back, and they have these real estate related passion projects that they do. I tell them, look, you got to make some money first, because the negative impacts of doing that will show up on your financials, and it's my job to explain that and show them exactly how. But it's a grind, right? And I've got to be willing to go through those losses, because there's the off chance that there's somebody out there that just needs a leg up, that can go on to be successful, but somebody just has to give them an opportunity. But in doing that, if I don't maintain that proper balance, and I've mismanaged this before, you can give too much to where it hurts you. And I got caught in a situation like that in Q4 of last year, and it's hard to recover, right? But understand, the lenses you see the world through there's a direct correlation between those lenses and you meeting your objective, right? Everybody has a different idea of success, and perspective is one of the key tools, the key things that is going to get you there. Bad stuff is going to happen. That's the only thing that we all have in common. Well, not the only thing, but bad stuff is going to happen. How do you navigate it? So get an appreciation for the seasoning process. All right. So 5 stages New entrepreneurs go through. The spark, we talk about that. Everybody's excited in the beginning. The chaos, that's overwhelmed and information overload, and you realize it's way harder than you thought, right? Then the grind, that is when you are, you got late nights, self-doubts, low returns because you're not making a lot of money. You're learning the hard way through trial and error. You're thinking maybe this isn't for you. That is the grind, right? And you got to be very careful not to let that sink your ship, right? Double down on action, track what's working, understand that that's the hardest stage, but it's also where most people quit. So if you can make it through the grind, guess what? You just left the pack behind. And then this is stage four. Stage four starts getting a little exciting, right? Let's call it the breakthrough. Stage four is the breakthrough. All right. You got a little traction, you got a little confidence, you start getting small wins. Maybe your first sale, first client, someone says yes. Now the idea becomes real. That is an actual real thing. When investing in real estate or teaching people how to do it, I teach them to appreciate the wins and just get engaged, right? We have people that started with us and they just gave up after like the first month or so, right? And we expect that, but it's still my job to create a space for them to always come back and pick up where they left off for as long as they need. But a lot of people quit, folks. A lot of people quit. And knowing that, sometimes you have to embed that into your core values, right? Your DNA, your operating system, that you are going to move forward sometimes just for the sake of moving forward. But when you get that breakthrough, that small win, that lets you know it's real. Now you've just shifted the lenses that you see the world through, right? Because now it's real. Now it's an actual thing, right? So when you have that breakthrough, you have information to be able to go off because you can see what works. You can refine your messaging. You can tighten your processes. You can reinvest into lead generation. You've got proof of concept, what we call it. You got proof of concept. Now you can just scale it. Right now, me, there are when I'm looking at scaling, I think one of my characteristics that I could do without is I think I know every damn thing. I think I can do everything better than everyone else, right? I don't know where I got that from. Maybe it was the way my parents raised me. Maybe it was my dad always talking good about me in front of me, good about me behind my back, and all the other things. But a lot of people don't have that confidence, and it's not it can be good, but it can also be bad. So I had to get really, really smart. You guys heard me make the comment before. You're not ready to get investors for your business until you've hit the $1 million mark. And that seemed unattainable to a lot of people. But I went on to explain that the reasoning behind that is because once you get to the $1 million mark, you've already had the breakthrough. You've already had your first sale, first client, obviously, right? Some people have said yes. You've got enough information to be able to make decisions that are going to help you scale up. So then it becomes a scale up conversation, not just can I do this for a living and make a profit conversation, which is typically where it goes sub $1 million. Right. And then the final phase, this is where I love to see people, right? The stabilization. So now you're officially in business. You've got recurring customers. You've got some automation, maybe a team forming, and you're here because you're planning ahead instead of reacting. You're earning consistently. You're growing steadily. You're thinking about how to scale more, if not, right? Not if, how to scale, not if to scale, right? You're setting quarterly goals. This is what all people should be doing at this point. You're focusing on predictable revenue, customer retention, delegating low value tasks. That's the stabilization. And it's easy to get there if you just stay in the fight. Now, how many people put a one in the chat if you're in our real estate family? And well, I'll go to Clubhouse. Put a one in the chat if you guys are in our real estate family. I see two of y'all. But put a one in the chat if you're in our real estate family. Oh, there's a few. Oh, okay. No, I mean like mentorship, our mentorship family, our mentorship group. Because some of y'all putting a one in the chat, and I ain't seen you on the weekly roundups in in a minute. So y'all about to go to the principal's office. All right. All right. So okay, I see. All right. So for the folks that are in our real estate family, we go as fast or as slow as they want to. But the people that are like, look, I'm in it. I'm ready. What do I do next? What do I do next? The goal for those folks is to teach them the stuff and then teach them how to have a system in place where they can still accomplish the stuff, but they don't have to be directly involved. So what that looks like is the fundamentals never leave, right? So those are going to be embedded into everything we do. Okay. And they get out there and they start learning how to avoid a bad deal. We prioritize that. Jamesh is going to the principal's office. We prioritize that because before I teach people how to make money, I teach them how to protect it. And in protecting it, that means we master the 4 data points. We manage risk as much as possible. We have realistic expectations. And then once they've gone out there and maybe done a couple of projects, and keep in mind, you may not get your first project for 7-8 months. You may not get your project for the first year. You may get your first project in 2 weeks, right? So you guys are starting to see why it's important not to have an end date on these mentorship programs, because you typically don't need the program until after the program already ended, like significantly, right? Which is why a lot of these programs don't work. There's no shade to the programs. They're doing exactly what they said they were going to do. But I think the reality is you are not going to be a seasoned real estate investor by doing a 6-month program, right? I mean, you might. I'm not saying you can't be effective at all, but a lot of these programs are just information. Some of y'all paying $15,000 for something you could have Googled, but it's all good. All right. So those are the 5 stages. Those are the 5 stages. Now I want to step away from that a little bit. I love real estate, but I love entrepreneurship. I don't get a chance to be in a lot of entrepreneurial conversations. You guys know we have something called Venture U, right? And the thought process behind Venture U and Ascend U is more personal development. Ascend U is more, the science behind your self-image and how that impacts a lot of the things you do in business. It's leadership, it's sales training. That's Ascend U. Venture U is for entrepreneurs. And the reason why I wanted to put that together is because I was doing my business plan, and I had been wanting to do this for a long time. And you guys know I'm very, very particular about who comes in and teaches anything in the 4 data points, the ChatGPT's mentorships. I'm very particular about who comes in and teaches. All our classes are live, right? They got to be interactive. I got to be able to look at you and see if you understand what I'm saying in case I need to break it down a different way, right? That's not something you can do just looking at a PDF lesson, all right? But I didn't want people to think that real estate investing was the end all be all, because it's just a way to make money. It's just a job, right? And I know we glorify it. Well, I'm throwing myself in that bucket too, but I don't really. People glorify it in a way that I think is misleading because they have something that they want to sell you. So they don't really share the dark side of real estate investing. They don't share the dark side of anything, entrepreneurship, anything that falls within that category. So what I wanted was, okay, now I've got students. I think we got our first millionaire student earlier this year. I think that was a first. We might have 3. But the other 2, I'm not going to dig in their business to see if they're millionaires yet, because I think that is a badge of honor. How many millionaires can we create? And that's probably one of the only metrics that I really hold dear. Like that I'm really shooting for. Can I make somebody into a millionaire? And if yes, how many? All right. But I also understand that you can be the greatest real estate investor in the world and be freaking miserable. Your relationships can be miserable, and I'm speaking as a man. You could, your role as a father can be impacted, right? If you're not holding that balance, you may want to do other businesses, right? Maybe it's not real estate all the time, but when you can step back from real estate and you've got a consistent check coming from it and you don't have to be active in it, why stop there? I do multiple businesses. So I wanted to create something where somebody comes into our organization and they never have to leave for anything. Personal development, entrepreneurship. I'm the real estate guy, so I'm always going to be heading that up because it's going to be too hard for me to hand that off to somebody. So I started bringing in people with the credentials to be able to manage some of these things. And Venture U is an international business retreat that takes all the pain that I've experienced as an entrepreneur and has the cure for every single aspect of that pain. Right. And when I say pain, I mean things I had to figure out the hard way. Legal structure, what automations to have, not just to have a website, but what does a functional website look like versus just having a website, right? Leadership. How am I going to build a team? Like, what's the blueprint for my overall objective with this business? How do I define a sales process? How do I know what processes I need to have in the first place? So Venture U is International Business Retreat. We got 6 days. Okay. So we get there on a Wednesday, we fly out on a Monday. And all of those consultants, everybody that I would have needed to talk to, that would have saved me from all of the money that I spent going person to person and company to company to get it right. All of those experiences, I'm having those experts fly in for 5 days with us. So if you have a business or an idea, whatever stage you're in, from start to finish, I'm talking about legal structure, I'm talking about everything, all in one house. I'd have paid a ridiculous amount if I knew how much money that was going to save me. So that's Venture U. And then after that, we are going to have the actual Venture U program teaching people all of these things. It's probably going to be for about maybe 3 or 4 weeks, every day, every weekday. And so people can get that blueprint without having to go internationally. Why you wouldn't want to go internationally? I don't know. You can get it all done in a week and still get to. So this is going to be in Medellin, Colombia. Fellas, calm down. Calm down, fellas. Yes, it is going to be in Medellin, Colombia. Yes, they are. It's a private villa. Yes, there's a private chef. Yes, we are knocking off at 4 p.m. every day and 2 p.m. on the weekend, so we can go out and get in trouble. And it's a business trip. Yes, Benito. Yeah, it's a business trip. All right. So so it's effective because I understand time is money, and I don't have time where I am now, even in the scale up conversation, to schedule all these calls with people and still not know whether or not they're going to be able to accomplish what they say they're going to accomplish. So Venture U International Business Retreat, that is at ventureu.live. So that if you guys are on Clubhouse, that link up top, that's my digital business card. I'm sure it's on there. And you guys that are on Clubhouse, not Clubhouse, TikTok, that meetotis.com, that's my digital business card. That information is on there. There's only 16 spots. And we are already planning the following one, which is going to be either in Thailand or Dubai. So y'all better get on board with the cool kids. Huh? No, I'm not cool. All right. Let's keep it going. Let me see. Where were we? So did you guys have any questions? Hold on. I'm just ignoring. Do you guys have any questions? Going to the Jeremiah, you taking folks to the principal's office, brother? All right. All right. Now, y'all gonna sign a waiver too, because if y'all married and you ain't supposed to be cutting up, we gonna tell on you. So don't be coming down there thinking because it's Medellin, Colombia, you're gonna be using this as an excuse. We will snitch. We gonna snitch you out to your significant other. Just kidding. No, we're not. Yeah, we are. No, we're not. All right. Any other questions about the entrepreneurial stuff? Look, man. If I had the pleasure of going to, Africa to, consult on some projects. Most of you guys that have been following me for a while know this. And I thought I was pretty, as an entrepreneur, I thought I was pretty sharp, right? Like, part of being an entrepreneur means you've got to dig deep and find something to keep moving forward, even when everything goes bad. Even when, you've got people saying, see, I told you it was a stupid idea. Even when you wake up and look around and realize that you've got a boat full of people, but you're the only one rowing, right? And everybody still has the same expectations of you as they did before you were an entrepreneur. You got people pulling you in all different directions. It does not feel good. You really have to believe in what it is that you were trying to do. And I always caution people, look, if you're just doing it for the money, you will get burned out. I promise you, you will get burned out. And then you will start something else just doing it for the money, and you will get burned out again. I know that because I gave up a company that was generating consistently $70,000, $80,000 a month that required almost zero work. Right? I think I worked on it like 2 to 4 hours a month. and I just didn't like the environment or that industry. And, I ended up going back. That company ended up, I got rid of that company, but I ended up going back and buying it back after it went bankrupt for pennies on the dollar, because it had the credit history at this point. And it's not, it's not, there's no positive reinforcement that is naturally going to come your way. Right. And when you look at how many people are successful, once you start down that entrepreneurship journey, you can see why most people aren't successful. Right. Most people aren't built for it. Right? But the good news is we get to determine what type of person that we want to be. Right. Nobody's built for it from the get go, but do you want it bad enough to go through all of the different stages? And I think part of your power comes from understanding which stage you're in. Otherwise, you just wake up feeling a type of way and you don't always know why, and it can lead to depression and all these other things. And if you have not had to, if you have not had to stave off depression, and I can only speak for being I can only speak for men, because our identity is wrapped in protecting and providing. And if you're a man and you're an entrepreneur and you are in any type of, you're a father or a husband, and you have some losses, you are no longer able to provide, at least for that month or whatever that duration is. And that could impact what you see when you look in the mirror of yourself. And it's really, really easy to go in depression. Really, I'm telling, I don't care how seasoned you are. It is very, very easy to go in depression if you can't identify where you're at in the process, right? So now with everything, with every win, with every, you guys, I told you guys I was scaling into some other things, or, some other topics, entrepreneurship and, personal development. I understand what phase one looks like, the spark. I understand that I may be fired up. I understand that my idea is a breakthrough idea, right? I understand that that is just a phase. All that excitement is just a phase. So I get that out the way real quick and welcome phase two, which is the chaos. When I go in, I assume that there's going to be a lot more to it than I thought. But since I've started other businesses, I've already gone through that seasoning process. So now every time I start something new, it's just boom, boom, boom. I already know what the 5 phases are. I have an appreciation for the hardest phase. Those of you guys that just came in, we talked about the 5 phases being the spark, which is the excitement, the vision. The chaos is where you figure out, hey, this is way harder than I thought it was going to be. Then phase 3 is the grind, right? You're in the trenches. You're facing real world resistance. You've got no clients, no leads, no systems, no checks, right? That's the grind. Then you have that breakthrough, right? Now you're over the hump and you're starting to see these little wins. And then phase 5 is stabilization, right? That's when you have structure and you're getting some momentum. Understanding where you are in that process is very, very important for you to be able to talk yourself through a lot of these issues, right? Oh man, I got some stories for y'all. I didn't even think I was going to be on today, as a matter of fact, but I got some stories for y'all. Mhm. All right. I think I'm gonna stop. I think I'm gonna stop with the. Let's get back into real estate. Can I get back? Put a 2 in the chat if I can get back into some real estate. I got to teach something today. The temptation come to us. Yes, yes, yes. I'm telling you. I always have when we go to, if we have something overseas, and there's a. All right, we're gonna take it back to real estate. When we go overseas and we go to some of these places, I tell these, and there's always, and I can always pick them out, right? There's always some brothers that they at home and they don't get out the house that much. And then you drop them off in some place like Medellin, Colombia. You ever see them vampire movies where they turn into a vampire? They just turn into a vampire, and then they have this crazy thirst for blood, right? Like it's like overwhelming. That's how these brothers be looking. That's how these cats be looking when they go out to some of these spots. So I gotta reel them in and be like, hey, young buck, hey, young fella, come back to the villa. All right. Look, I'm messing it up for y'all. See, some of y'all was gonna go. y'all significant other. I told y'all not putting me on speakerphone. All right. All right, let's get it back into real estate. All right, 4 Data Points Academy, 4 questions. What does it cost? What does it cost to fix up? What's it going to be worth when I'm done? How much income can it generate? All right. Your whole entire real estate investing world is going to center around 12 things. And you guys will notice that anytime I'm talking about real estate or teaching something, whether it's one-on-one or on a large scale, I got to simplify it. Why? Because if I'm learning something new, you got to simplify it for me. You may have to tell me the same thing 7 times in a row, 10 times in a row. And I need you on that 10th time to tell me with the same enthusiasm you had when you told me the first time. All right. Now, your whole real estate investing world, your first year, all right, is going to revolve around these 12 things. 4 of those 12 things are each of the questions of the 4 data points. This is week 1. We do not move forward investing in real estate if you cannot answer these questions. If you can answer the questions, but the information is sufficient for you to make a decision, you need to stop. That's a red flag. Okay. So you got to be able to assess a deal. You got to be able to determine whether it's worth your time to move forward on a real estate project, whether it's a single family home or a 20-unit apartment building. So out of these 12 things, 4 of them are the 4 data points. The second group of 4 are the documents. You need to know what they are and how they're used. Now, this is something that you could just Google, right? Certain things you're going to be able to Google. I have lessons for all this stuff, but I tell people in conversation, like I've had people book consultations with me, and mind you, a residential consultation with me is $350 for 30 minutes. A multifamily commercial one is $700 for an hour, right? Because we rarely can do it in 30 minutes. I've had people sign up for those consultations that I had to call back and cancel the consultation because I was like, based on what you could have just Googled that question. You're gonna pay me $350 to ask a question you could have Googled? You must not have even tried to Google it first. There's been consultations that I've canceled and just sent them the information because I happened to be at my desk when it popped up. The question was really, really simple. I just Googled it for them and just pasted it back to them. This is all you need. You don't need a consultation, right? Save your money. Because I don't want to, the time, I mean, of course, somebody would say, well, somebody was to pay you $700 for an hour or $350 for 30 minutes, by all means, let them pay it. But it's not the best use of my time. And I actually, I encourage people not to do that unless they need me to help them underwrite a specific project. But you guys on Clubhouse right now have the power to ask any question in the entire world with respect to real estate and get the answer. And you guys that have been following me for a while know that you can do that also. All right. So 4 data points is the first of the 12. The second group of the 12, right? And these are groups of 4, are the documents. A promissory note. You got to know how to use a promissory note. You got to know what a security instrument is. Most of you realtors know this because it's on the test every 4 years. Continuing education probably comes up. You've got to know what a deed is, right? And you've got to know what a purchase agreement is. So again, a purchase agreement, you got to know how to write an offer on a property. A promissory note, that's a promise to pay. So if you're going to do anything having to do with seller financing, you got to understand how to use a promissory note. A security instrument, when registered with the county, is a document that enforces the promissory note, giving the lender the power to foreclose. And a deed. A deed is just a transfer document. Understanding which deed to use, okay? Which deed to use and why. Warranty deeds have the most protection. Quitclaim deeds have the least amount of protection, but they are both used, so understand why. So those are the 4 documents. Now we say 12, right? The first group of 4 data points. You got to be able to answer those questions. What does it cost? What does it cost to fix up? What's it going to be worth when I'm done? How much income can it generate? The second group of 4 are the basic documents that we use. Purchase agreement, security instrument, promissory note, and a deed, right? Understand what they are. The last 4 are the basic tools. The basic tools just to operate as a new real estate investor. And those basic tools are, you got to be able to check public records. You got to be able to check that. That's the core of what we do. If you don't have PropStream or REI Pro or any of their competitors, I use PropStream. None of them are perfect. PropStream has the best data set, in my opinion, right? But we've got relationships with REI Pro too. If you don't have that, then don't put money into anything else. Don't move forward if you cannot confirm public records. You can't even answer the 4 data points without some of these tools. So PropStream is number 1. Rentometer or rentometer.com, that's number 2. you got to be able to perform an analysis on how much income a property can generate. By the way, folks, these 12, this is the basic, right? So that's number 2. Number 3 is you got to get the forms somewhere. So eForms or Rocket Lawyer are great, right? For the more complicated stuff, I recommend using an attorney. But for the basic stuff, eForms or Rocket Lawyer. And then you've got to have an internet presence. If you are going to do business on a large scale and you're going to have a system in place to start getting these properties as a discount, and you're going to be marketing and doing all these other things, you got to have a landing page or a website. Now, it didn't have to be, super, super complicated, but, pay the $350 for somebody to do your landing page. I've got multiple landing pages. I've got 4 Data Points Academy website, which is on its 4th iteration. I've got the Venture U, the ventureu.live. I got that website. I'll have one for the, Ascend U is going to have one, its own website. So all of these things are necessary. Remember, it's not about who you know. It's not about what you know as much as it is about who knows what you do. And you got to let as many people know what you do as possible. Now, if you're going to be doing I could teach you how to buy a house with no capital up front. I could teach you how to buy an apartment building with no capital up front. I do manage people's expectations. But if you're not marketing, how are you going to find those people to have conversations with for them to agree to it? All right. Those are the 12 things, okay, that we focus on. The 4 data points, the 4 primary documents we use, and the 4 subscription services, software, or tools that we have to use. What's up, Michigan, in the building, that we have to use? Okay. That is your entire real estate investing world. Right? Now, if you don't have any money, don't get into real estate investing. That is me. That is the exact same thing I would tell my son or my daughter or anybody that I cared about. If you don't have any money, don't get into real estate investing. I would say, look at your current situation and see how we can improve that first. Because what happens is we did a call, and people used to always wonder why I would discourage people from going to our website and just swiping their credit card. Me and James go back and forth on this, all the time. He was like, look, man, it's your job to teach them and educate them exactly on what it is that you do and how you can add value to them. If they want to go buy your service behind your back, so I don't know why I made it so bad. If they want to go buy your service without talking to you, then that's, you have to let them. But we had a situation where I had a call with somebody, and they were in one of the clubhouse rooms where we were talking about, I think I did the 10-unit apartment building. Jamisha, you know that 10-unit apartment building example that I always use? Do you remember that? Put a 3 in the chat if y'all want me to go over it again. But anyway.
Yes, I do.
Right. So there's this 10-unit apartment building example that I use to teach people how to buy an apartment building without utilizing, capital for a down payment and all these other things. And when I teach that, I teach the downside of that, or all of the things that you have to consider outside of that, so people don't run out there and start trying to do that, and then they get let down because these other things weren't in alignment to allow them to be able to do that. So we had one person that was in that room schedule a call right after that. Right. And they were like, hey, I'm ready to go. Now, they came up on stage while in the room, and they shared some personal details about why they were getting into real estate investing. And then there was some financial issues that they were dealing with. So this person said, you know what? I had this, and I think they've been following me for some time. They said, look, I love what you do, man. Everybody has good things to say about you. I checked your Google reviews, or you got almost 100 5-star reviews. Like they were already convinced. And when it was time to sign up, they were like, I got it. And in my mind, I'm like, wait, we just there was a financial hardship you were just talking about while we were in the clubhouse room. And I don't want to pry or make anybody feel uncomfortable, but I had to ask, right? Sometimes the Holy Spirit will be like, look, all money ain't good money, right? So I said, okay, but weren't we talking about, X, Y, and Z that you were experiencing? I mean, look, the room was like a short while ago. I'm sure it wasn't resolved already. They said, no, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to sign up with you. and then I'm going to go back and address these financial issues. But now that I have the education as a real estate investor, now I can go ahead and resolve these issues based on what I learned from you. And it wasn't the most comfortable conversation, but I ended up having to turn this person away because, and what I told them was, I teach people how not to make poor financial decisions, and, full transparency, given where you are right now, I think it would be a poor financial decision for you to join our real estate family. I think that you should take that money and resolve that issue first. We're not going anywhere, but if it doesn't happen as quickly as you believe it's going to happen, then your situation is going to get a lot worse. And now now I got to look at you every week because we don't have an end date. So I'm gonna look at you every week. So if something's not working, I gotta navigate that every single week, sometimes 3 and 4 times a week. So we ended up not letting that person in because, again, we thought they were making a poor financial decision, right? So, some people need wise counseling because of fear of missing out. True, that is true. There's always a fear. There's always a fear of missing out, right? So those conversations are important. I tell people, look, improve your situation first, and then we'll have another conversation. There's some people that I can't convince, and some people they'll have a call with me, and then I'll be like, and if I turn them away, then they'll call James, and they'll call James and have the same call with him, and then hold on 1 second, and then James will call me and be like, hey, we got a new real estate family member. I'm like, okay, who? And they'll give me the name of the person I just talked to the previous day. So, all right, I'll, buyer beware. All right, so those are the 12 things. All right, again, the 12 things when you're starting your real estate investing journey. 4 data points, that's the first group of 4. Understanding the 4 documents that we use primarily, that's the second group of 4. Understanding what software and stuff that you're going to need to do business every day, that's the third group of 4. So if you guys are looking, I have an affiliate link with PropStream now, thanks to James for setting that up for me. And for the record, I was recommending PropStream long before I even knew they did affiliate links. So I've always used them. REI Pro too. But if you guys want to get PropStream, I have an affiliate link. Reach out to me. I'll give you the link. You can get it for a couple dollars cheaper. But it's imperative that you have that or one of its competitors. Now, once we establish what your real estate investing world looks like with those 12 things, then we go to the next phase, right? We look at we go through the fundamentals. So we, learn all the creative stuff, seller financing, subject to lease purchase, lease options, all those other innovations, all of those other things, right? But then you get to a point where now you understand how to structure deals creatively. And when we teach people how to structure deals creatively, we break it down into 4 components. You guys will notice that we keep things in groups of 4s, right? Because I think that's for no other reason than I got to remember them too. So I need help remembering all the stuff too. So I said, all right, I could do 4. I can remember 4 things. All right. So when you structure deals creatively, and by the way, folks, I'm talking about it the same way that I teach it. Okay. Because the goal is people have to retain the information. So if you overwhelm them with too much stuff, they're not going to retain the information. If they can't retain the information, their comfort zone is going to shrink, and that's not going to do any of us any good. All right. So when you structure deals creatively, there's 4 components. What do you think the first component is? The 4 data points. You'll notice that has to be done. Benito said, I got to look at you every week. That has to be done on everything. Now, I don't care. Did I make up these 4 questions? No, they've been around for a long time. Now I may have come up with a way to teach it, right? But I didn't come up with these 4 questions. People have been executing for a long time. Now, Jamisha, where you go? All right. So the 4 data points, the next component of structuring deals creatively is taking control of the real estate asset before you have to pay for it. That is the magic pill. Taking control of the real estate asset before you have to pay for it. Now, you're still obligated to pay for it, but just not yet. So taking control, that means your name has to be on that deed before you have to pay for it. Now, this is where a lot of people get stuck because they're like, look, how am I going to get somebody to deed something? I wouldn't deed a property over to somebody before they paid me. Well, there's a way to structure that. Now, the seller financing component comes in. That's when we take that debt, we attach it to the property so it stays there in the form of a lien. But now that we own the property, now we can borrow funds to fix it up. If we don't own it, we can't borrow funds to fix it up, at least not tied to the real estate. You can borrow from a consumer lending site or some other places, but I don't fix up any property that I don't own. So that's why component number 2 is so important. You got to be able to get your name on the deed before you have to pay for it. Now, turn this up a little bit. Now, the third component, you got to make it worth more than you bought it for or agreed to buy it for because you haven't paid for it yet, right? And by running the 4 data points, you know, data point number 3, what's it going to be worth when we're done? And once you figure out what it's going to be worth when you're done, you can calculate how much financing you can get towards that worth. It's typically about 80%. Well, if you can get 80% financing towards that worth, guess what? You already own the property. And because what you agreed to buy it for is in the form of debt against that property, all you got to do is a cash out refinance. The closing company, when they distribute those funds, they're going to see that lien on the property in favor of the old owner, and they're going to pay the old owner off, just like they'd pay any other mortgage off when you were refinancing. So component number 3, you got to make it worth more than you bought it for. And then component number 4, you got to exit. You're either going to do a cash out refinance or you're going to sell it. This is one of the two, right? But you should know that prior to getting into it, which is why we always start with the 4 data points. What does it cost? What does it cost to fix up? What's it going to be worth when I'm done? How much income can it generate? Now, this is how I teach it, okay? So we spend about 7-8 weeks doing this. And then we get into the practical application of the stuff, right? So after the fundamentals, I don't do it too much anymore, but after we go through like 7-8 weeks, our classes are a lot smaller now because most people already went through this. I ask, hey, do you guys feel like real estate investors? And there's always one person that's like, yeah. I think they're just doing that just to be polite because no one's supposed to feel like a real estate investor after 7-8 weeks of fundamentals, right? And we don't, we just do a couple hours a week. Right. Now there's an opportunity for you to come in for 4 hours a week if you want to, but we just, we don't want to overload people. So once they go through that, then we have to look at, okay, we have to have another conversation. So let's say Raj, I see you down there, Raj. So let's say Raj signs on with us, and Raj, after 7-8 weeks, Raj is going through the fundamentals. Now in that 7-8 weeks, let's say week 2, right? Let's assume Raj doesn't know anything about real estate. He's brand new, but he gets an opportunity. Hey, so-and-so from my church is, you got this old beat up house they were trying to get rid of. I figured, hey, let's see what we could do. So I'm gonna pull Raj aside, and Raj and I are gonna have a conversation, and I'm gonna hold Raj's hand through that entire process, evaluating the deal. If it makes a good flip the deal, start to finish. If it makes a good long-term hold, we'll analyze that, because I think that is a better learning tool than just going over specific lessons. So we always maintain enough flexibility. And I tell people, look, go after opportunities. I don't care if you know how to do it or not. I'll help you through it, right? Because I think it's a really, really good learning opportunity. So Raj will come in, and then at the end of the 7-8 weeks, let's assume Raj didn't get an opportunity. At the end of 7-8 weeks, I'm gonna say, Raj, how you feeling? Raj is gonna say, well, Raj probably gonna be polite and be like, well, got a lot of knowledge. Okay, a lot of information. And my reply is always the same. All this information is useless, right? You could have Googled a lot of this stuff, right? And Raj will say, well, maybe, but, they always try to make me feel better about it. Yeah, but, that I'd rather just do it with you instead of going down a rabbit hole for 8 hours of Googling stuff that may or may not be true. But the point I'm trying to make is now we got to get out there and do the stuff. So Raj, where are you at? Where are you at financially? Where are you at with time? Where are you at with credit? And I don't care how good or bad any of those things are, because what I'm trying to do is I'm going to put myself in Raj's situation, and then we are going to navigate it until we get to that next level, that next benchmark. And that's going to be different for everybody, right? Let's say Marvin, Paula, Raj, and Liz come in. We all got to have that conversation. Marvin may have a lot of cash, but poor credit. Liz may have poor credit, but a lot of cash. Raj may have poor credit, poor cash, but he's got the relationships with people. He can put groups together. Those are all different scenarios. And one educational program is not going to address every single scenario. That's one of the primary differences between mentorship and taking a course. Mentorship is a long-term professional relationship. You should be able to call your mentor, and regardless of what the problem is, they should be able to navigate you through it. Not send you to customer service, not, do all these other things that these other programs do. That is the difference. People pay for support. They don't pay for the information. The information is necessary, right? But I don't sell information. I just don't think it's, anyway. I don't want to make anybody else, any other mentors, air quotes, uncomfortable. But anyway, so that's what that is. That'll give you a good understanding of what it means to go ahead and want to be a real estate investor. And I like to tie it into entrepreneurship, because real estate investing, you're basically self-employed until you have an organization that can do everything for you in the real estate investing space, and you can walk off, right? So what we do is we try to create a business out of every individual thing you do in the real estate investing space. Your house, that first house, that's a business. What do you do with a business? You find a business that's not profitable. You go in and take over the business, make it profitable. Maybe you pull equity out of the business to buy another business, another house, and then put a manager in the business to manage it, property manager. And you do that until you get to the point where all of this residual income supports your lifestyle, whatever lifestyle that you're looking to have. Maybe the lifestyle you want to have is $80,000 a year. Nothing wrong with that. Maybe it's $50,000 a year. Maybe it's $500,000 a year. All right. But my goal is to teach you how to get there, right? For example, if somebody says, look, I want a passive income of, $300,000 a year. All right, cool. You ain't going to do that flipping homes. So I need to share, okay, well, this is how you get to $300,000 a year. That road goes through multifamily commercial, by the way. So if you think you're going to flip homes, it's going to take you a significant amount of time to accumulate enough passive income to make $300,000 a year. But it's my job to show you how, so you can choose the best direction for yourself. Right? I'll show you how to make, let's say, a month. I'll show you how to make $10,000 a month. And we'll go ahead and break that down, and we'll analyze the time involved, the time it takes to put you in a position to be able to do that. Because once you know how to make $10,000 a month, now you can see what it's going to take to make $20,000 a month and $30,000 a month. Most people coming in as real estate investors, we ask them as a courtesy, so what are your goals? What are your real estate investing goals? I know people don't know what their goals are, because their goals are based on the information they already have. And it's my job to give them enough information to make realistic goals. Right? No one's getting rich in a year, folks. I mean, I could, is it possible? Yes. Is it possible to make $1 million your first year? Yes. Is it possible to make $1 million on a multifamily commercial deal without you even having to come in with any money your first year? Absolutely. It's possible. It's also possible that you win the lottery. Just because something is possible doesn't mean it's likely. And because our relationship is a long-term one, I'm not going to promise you $1 million dream knowing I can't deliver and have to look at you 4 times a week in perpetuity. That's just not fair, right? It's not fair. So real estate investing is not get rich quick. Now, you can make an influx of cash, right? $60,000, $80,000 on a flip. Right? You can do your first flip. I always recommend people start with residential. I teach both, so I don't care which one you start with. But I understand that there's a lot of things on the residential side that you're going to carry over into the multifamily commercial side. There's a lot of lessons on the residential side that are going to be of great use when you get into the multifamily commercial side, especially with respect to landlording, right? I got to teach folks how to be landlords too. Why? Because I understand how imperative that is. Acquisition is the easy part. Acquiring a building without paying anything up front is the easy part. How are you going to make it profitable? If you don't have background in the operation side of things, you can't. So there's all of these other things that after the fundamentals that I have to teach people that only apply to them. And if it applies to too many people at one time, I'll just have a workshop internally for like 5 or 6 hours, invite everybody back in, right? But most people don't know everything that's involved in real estate. real estate investing specifically. They know about flipping homes. That's just a tool. You don't want to flip homes for the rest of your real estate investing career. Now, if you have a business in place with systems and processes so you can do it without having to actively be involved, great, but you got to know how to do it first. Buying and selling debt. Sometimes it's more profitable to lend on properties than it is to flip a property, and the risk is reduced. Maybe you want to be a referral service. Maybe you start a company to be a referral service. I did that. I have one company that I use that I put together. The sole purpose of that company is to deal with contractors that only take cash. All right. Period. People give my company, they pay by credit card or whatever it is, and then I'll pay the contractor cash for a fee. Right? So there's a lot of different ways to make money in real estate investing. I'm like J.G. Wentworth, though. I need my cash now. I could just invest in the market if I'm a wait and do 8% year over year returns. I can put that in the NASDAQ or I'm sorry, S&P 500 or some index fund. Right? So, it's better to underpromise and overdeliver and give people the truth about what real estate investing really means. And if, someone else promises them the world and they want to go with that other person, I recommend just going with that other person, because it is very, very expensive, very, very expensive to allocate time and resources to people for as long as it takes. So if they're not meeting that objective and I can't help them get there because I didn't manage their expectations, then we all look bad. All right. All right. I think I'm gonna tap out. I'm gonna jump on a little later, but I got to go do daddy duty. You guys all know how to get a hold of me. We talked about, what did we talk about? Well, we did entrepreneurship mostly today, but we talked about the 5 phases of entrepreneurship. A lot of this stuff ties into real estate also, but those phases were the spark, right? The excitement and the vision. We all start out there. Every time we get an idea and, we start watching motivational content and buying books, courses, and telling friends and family we're about to blow up, all that. We've all been there, right? Then we get into the chaos. That's phase 2. And remember, the importance is knowing what phase you're in so that you can navigate through it, right? If you can't see it, you can't kill it, right? So all of the negativity that comes with these different phases, once you acknowledge that, okay, I'm just in this phase, then you can kill all that negativity. Phase 2 is the chaos. You feel overwhelmed. You got information overload. You start and stop multiple things. You're working on things like tweaking your logo and name and all that stuff, and you're doubting yourself and you're comparing yourself to others. Welcome to the world of social media. All right. That's the chaos. And then this is where the difficulty peaks at. This is phase 3, the grind. Right. And I mentioned you're in the trenches. You picked a lane, but now you're facing real world resistance. You don't have any clients. You don't have any leads. No systems that break. You're spending late nights. You've got self-doubt, low returns. You're fighting depression. You're learning the hard way, all of these things through trial and error, which is very, very expensive. And then you're thinking, you know what? Maybe this isn't for me. Maybe this isn't for me is a defining moment for most people. Maybe this isn't for me. And all of us have asked that question in some way, shape, or form. Is this for me? Because everything in the world is telling me that it's not. It shouldn't be this hard. All right? Where's all the support? All of my friends, I got this product, I make candles or whatever it is. None of them have tried to come buy any. And I'm too proud to ask them why. Those are real conversations that people have. But as soon as you come to that point, as soon as you acknowledge it and say, look, maybe this isn't for me, as soon as you hear those words come out of your mouth or through your thought process, you know that the difficulty has peaked. And then comes phase 4, the breakthrough, right? Small wins. You get your first sale. That first sale is huge, by the way. You get your first client. Somebody says yes. Now the idea is real, right? You start to feel more focused, less frantic. Start trusting yourself more than, the advice online. You start creating systems instead of winging it because you can see what works. You can see what works. You folks on Facebook and Clubhouse, I see people in both places that I've had these conversations with. You start to refine your messaging, you tighten up your processes. All right. You reinvest into lead generation, you got proof of concept. Now it's just how do you scale it? But if you don't get through the grind, you'll never get to that first win. And that first win is big, and it doesn't always have to be a financial win. It could be anything. Entrepreneurship, and then I'll talk about phase five in a second. Entrepreneurship is about navigating all the things that go wrong and appreciating the things that go right. And when they go right, we analyze those things and extract the data so we can see what worked and what didn't work. And then we can focus on where to allocate our resources. But the emotional component of entrepreneurship is what knocks people out. And then you hit phase five, stabilization. That's when you got structure, you got momentum, right? You're planning ahead instead of reacting. You're earning consistently. You're growing, thinking about how to scale, not if to scale. I love seeing people when they get there. That's the $1 million. That's the $1 million point. Now it's how do we go from $1 million to $10 million, which is an entirely different conversation that knocks you all the way back down to phase one. But now you're on phase one, but level two, right? So you made $1 million and you're excited. You got the vision. You see how far you want to go. And then more chaos. It's just a different type of chaos. And then it's a different type of grind. And then you've got different small wins, right? Anyway, I love it. I can talk about this all day. I remember those times. Anybody deal with imposter syndrome? I'm not going to tell you to put something in the chat if you've dealt with imposter syndrome. You know what the cure for imposter syndrome is? It's the grind. And part of, I believe God will put us through all these things, right? I think part of that is that's the only way you can get to where you want to go and feel like you belong there is this grind. Because you've already know a lot of people aren't built for this. The grind is what took out a lot of people, and you made it through. Amen. I most definitely have and still do. Yeah, imposter syndrome is a real thing, right? I've had success in areas outside of real estate way too fast and got put up in, catapulted into, like people were talking about. I spoke at this one, I'm not going to say where it was. I spoke at this one place about, it was 7-figure business owners. And so I got invited to speak at this place, and I really didn't feel like I should have been there, right? Like these were people that had put like years and hard, just grinding it out, and they had some amazing stories, right? And I made like $1 million in my spare time. And I only worked on it for like a couple hours a month. So I didn't really feel like I was qualified. That was one of the only times where I really got imposter syndrome, because I was 100% sure that I did not belong there, right? These people were talking about, yeah, I had to mortgage my house, and then I lost my house, and then, my wife left, and it was just all bad. And then when it was my turn, I don't plan speeches, right? I don't write speeches ahead of time. And I think a lot of this comes from, I was in ministry exclusively for 3 years some time ago. I started in 2008 and then I quit in 2011 because, I still had some spiritual growth, right? And I didn't want to be a hypocrite. Y'all wouldn't go see me on YouTube getting dragged through the mud. So I never planned for these, and I'm very, very comfortable speaking in front of large groups of people, right? I'm more comfortable up there than I am doing the small talk in the audience, right? And I don't know what, so I didn't know that all these other stories were going to be so tragic. So when I went up there, I had to change everything that I was going to say to try to fit in with what was going on. And I explained to people, the first thing I said when I get up there was, oh, I have imposter syndrome, like a what right now. That's what I said. I said, I have extreme imposter syndrome right now. And let me tell you why. I look at all of the benefits that the people that spoke before me achieved by going through all of those dark times and the seasoning process. And I bet every one of those folks, when they got up here on this stage, felt at least to some degree like they belong here on this stage. So I ended up changing my whole speech to having an appreciation for all of those dark times. Otherwise, I would have went up there and had to be like, yeah, I didn't put much effort into it. And if it didn't work, so what? I was getting paid, six figures in my regular job, which anyway. So yeah, imposter syndrome's a real thing. Now, on the real estate space, in the real estate space, I've never experienced imposter syndrome because I've been doing this, I've been exposed to this my entire life. So even at the point where I got in to meet with the vice president of, Gambia, or met with some governors or some generals and all that, I never had imposter syndrome. But you could have put me in front of anybody on the real estate side, and I always felt like I needed to be there, or I should have been there. Why? Because I already lost everything. I already learned all the hard lessons. I already experienced the seasoning process over and over and over and over, and was on food stamps and, all of the things that go along with that. So my conversation is different now, right? And those things are extremely valuable. I'm gonna go off on a tangent. So I think I'm about to shut it down. We've got solutions to anybody that wants, or for anybody that wants to become a real estate investor. We've got solutions for anybody that wants to become an entrepreneur. It costs for our business retreat. I think the lowest ticket is 2,800, and the highest ticket is $5,000. But we're housing you, and I got a private chef coming in. We're feeding you for the 6 days, so it includes all that. But don't stretch it, right? Don't stretch it. If that is your life savings, I'm gonna say don't hold off. It doesn't mean you have a lack of faith, right? I think there's just a way to improve your situation so you don't have to spend all your life savings on doing a business retreat like that. Same with mentorship, folks. If you just have some mentorship questions, so not mentorship questions, but real estate questions you want me to answer, this is the time to do it. Don't schedule a consult for a simple question. I'm telling you right now, it's not worth the money, right? If not having the answer, if having the answer to that question is going to make you some money, great, by all means. But just for basic stuff, please don't schedule a consult, because you have to pay to schedule it. And then I got to go in there, and if I feel like it was just something that could have been asked on Clubhouse, I'm not going to take that money. Right. So let's be smart. Folks, my website is 4datapoints.com. The number 4, DATAPOINTS.com. So you get nervous spelling out loud when you still need 6 credits to graduate junior college. Somebody was like, I said, some entrepreneurship, something. They was like, how do you spell that? I was like, I can't do it. Can't do it. It's too risky. All right, so we're going to shut down the live. I'll stay on TikTok. If you guys have any questions, we can rock out for a little more. I'll leave Clubhouse open. So if you guys have any questions, we can rock out a little more. But I'm going to end this stream. You folks over on Instagram, thank you for joining. You know how to find me. The replays you guys can probably find on YouTube. Please don't ask me how, because I'm just pushing buttons here. I don't know. It's on there somewhere. That being said,